Well, hi out there. Welcome to Relationship Coaching Live. So, in a world that often romanticizes intimacy, we sometimes overlook one of the most powerful connections of all, platonic intimacy. But what does that mean, to be deeply connected to someone without romance? How does it shape our emotional well being, and how can we cultivate it in our lives? Well, today we're joined by Nathaniel Dolquist, who graduated from Yale University with a degree in theater and is the creator of The Ice King, a series that explores relationships and human connection in all its forms. It premieres on March 21st on YouTube. And together, we're diving into the beauty, benefits, and boundaries of platonic intimacy. Let's get into it. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Grace. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love your work. And I would say he's the perfect person to talk about platonic relationships because you know a lot about relationships, even though you haven't been on this earth that long.
I mean, everybody's got a bunch of different experiences, so they just all have different flavors. And yes, I have had many different types of relationships in my life, but I've also learned a lot from them. So I'm very grateful for the experiences I've had too. So
That's good. It's smart to learn from our relationships because a lot, they're like I'm a like late bloomer, so it took me like about 10 bad ones. Okay, not for me. This person, not for me. This type of person. But that's great. I'm so excited to have you here on Relationship Coaching Live. And your series, The Ice King, has a powerful title, really. So can you tell us what it's about and what inspired you to create it?
sure. So The Ice King's Heart is about a 40-minute piece that I've divided up into about 8 episodes. And it's going to be a web series that I release over the course of the next 2 months. So we've got our premiere in 2 weeks, which I'm super excited about. And basically, I have for a very long time wanted to mythologize some of the heartbreak and especially betrayal that I've been through in my life. And what I mean by that is I wanted to take the stories, the actual events and things that have happened to me, and sort of expand that into a mythological setting, a fantasy setting, something that sort of like makes it even bigger so that the lessons that I learned from each of those relationships can not become a moral necessarily, but definitely become a plot. Because, you know, in life, I don't know if any of us see our relationships as like, oh yeah, this is developing the plot, or like this relationship has a plot, because in my experience, when we're really centered and present with our partners, we just get to be, and then the story writes itself over time. And maybe looking back, we can see where it was leading or what happened. But I wanted to take these stories and turn them into like little vignettes and explore different types of intimacy and relationships that I had been in my life through an art form. So I made it, and it took almost a year, but we're almost there.
I love that. But what does the title of The Ice King symbolize in the context of like relationships and intimacy?
Oh, yes, of course. So I titled it The Ice King because the Ice King, the main character played by me, his heart is turning to ice. It's a little Frozen-esque, but my experience with betrayal is that it makes me feel like I have ice running through my veins. And I experienced a particularly bad betrayal within the last year that really made me feel like I might never be able to love again or trust in the same way. And so he's made of ice, and he doesn't want to be, but he is.
I hear you. And I made a little clip of what you sent me. So let's watch it.
I didn't want to become this. I fought against it with everything I had. But given what's happened, now I see it was inevitable. I could have kept resisting, denying the truth of who I am. But I couldn't bear it anymore. I've embraced it. Become what I never wanted to be. Cold. Unforgiving. Unrelenting. A king whose heart is made of ice.
Ooh.
my gosh, that's the first time anybody has seen any of the clips outside of like my team who's making it. So if you're watching this, you just got to see it 2 weeks before everybody else is going to see it. So that's super special.
That is so cool. And I love the cinematography. Like it feels very icy. It's
Thanks.
really good. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a lot of I know some really wonderful, talented artists who really helped me bring it to life. So I'm very grateful for them. That's all them. I just stood there and said words.
Well, you have a degree in theater and it shows. And I love that you picked the British accent because whenever we think of kings, we think of the UK, right? That's what we think about. Like even me growing up in Argentina, when you would say king or queen, I would think Great Britain. So so it's kind of like the universal symbol for kings and queens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They've had a monarchy for a long, long time.
I know, forever. And they're out there, so they're very well known compared to other monarchies. They're more hush hush, right?
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
So how does your series explore human connections, especially when it comes to emotional vulnerability and intimacy?
Yeah, of course. So I have, seen a lot of people love to talk about romantic relationships. It's very easy to talk about that. Everybody has experiences, everybody's got opinions, and especially in this day and age, a lot of horror stories.
Yes.
But one of the things that I have been working on with my therapist and coach is that there are different forms of intimacy besides just romantic or sexual intimacy. And platonic intimacy is one of those, which is one of the ones what we're going to talk about today. But I wanted to examine these different types of intimacy through my work. And I thought, well, this is a little sad actually, but I was like, how have I been heartbroken or betrayed in various types of relationships, not just romantic relationships? The easy thing to say about a romantic relationship when you feel betrayed is like somebody cheated on you, right? Like that's like the go-to thing. But I was like, there's actually much more to it than that. There are far more ways to be betrayed. And so my series examines, yes, romantic relationships with both men and women, but also business partnerships, friendships, parents, other types of intimacy that people might not think about as much, and how those can also be painful. It seems kind of dark, but the point of the series is to explore it and sort of shine a light on that for people so that they can say, oh yeah, my business partner really was awful, or my boss really awful, even though we were very close and they really turned on me when it suited them. So
Absolutely. As a relationship coach, when I say I'm a relationship coach, people think romantic relationships, but that's not all there is to life. We actually have more relationships with, platonic partners or friends or parents or family or, even acquaintances that are just part of our lives. And they're probably like 90% of our lives, unless you're like only dealing with your partner, then it's going to be 90%. Some people are like that, and that's fine. That whatever works for everybody. Are you like a focused on romantic relationships kind of person, or more like you like to have a balance of relationships in your life?
I very much prefer to have a balance of relationships. I currently have a wonderful boyfriend and we are exploring romantic intimacy together.
Yes.
But with my friendships, especially, I don't know if other people have experienced this. I assume they have, but my experience is that sometimes friends just vanish. They disappear. Something happens in their life and they just stop talking to you. And I am heartbroken of the couple of times that that's happened to me. And, I sort of want to open up the dialogue to people about like, what do you do when someone you feel very close to, that you've shared a lot with, that is an important part of your life, simply decides that you're not in it anymore and stops and makes their choice? I mean, they can have their own boundaries and make their own choices. Of course they can, but sometimes in a cruel way. It can be more or less cruel depending on the situation. So and I've had a lot of friendships where I've just been like, wow, this is really sad. I wish that, I had been able to talk to this person and say, like with teachers, for example, you get very intimate with teachers and coaches because you are giving them the power to change you.
Yeah.
and to teach you something. And so I even had like a voice teacher that I was very close with for a very long time. And when I stopped paying her for lessons, she like didn't seem to have the time to respond to me anymore.
Oh, that is so disappointing because
Oh,
you're
it was
almost
so awful.
thinking, yeah, because you're thinking like, oh, they're my friend too.
Right.
And yeah, and because you connect with them, but to them it's just about the business, right? It's
Right.
more of a business relationship. So it's sometimes people do mislead others when they're doing business. So that can be very painful, I think.
Yeah, and it would have been, as they say, clear as kind, right? So in
Yes.
in hindsight, that was many years ago. I wish I had had a conversation with her and said, "Hey, I know that we are not in our teacher-student relationship anymore. Our relationship to each other has literally changed because I'm not your student anymore. But I really like you as a person. Can we navigate, if you would like to, can we navigate a transformation of that platonic teacher-student relationship into a friend relationship? And what does that mean? Because some of the ways we shared intimacy, this is a voice teacher, so like she's teaching me how to sing, which is a very intimate thing. And because it's personal and close to the heart, right? That's what I mean by
Yes,
intimacy. We have to
absolutely. And it's
take
it's
the
almost
word.
physical.
That's right. We have to take
It's
the word
yeah,
intimacy out of meaning only sexual relationships and get
totally.
comfortable using it in different contexts. So it was a very intimate relationship. And I really felt like I lost a friend and a person. Yeah, we talk sometimes, we text back and forth, but not very regularly. And I still mourn that relationship because I really feel like we could have successfully navigated it, set new boundaries, found different ways to connect. But I don't think that's a skill that people think about very often. So.
Not really. I know. It's and I wrote a book about love at first X, right? How to deal with the breakup aftermath. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to my ex anymore." And I'm like, but if you love that person, can you maybe take a break from them for a while and then maybe be friends or be friendly or nice to each other? It's to me it's so cold that you're dating someone and you're romantically involved for 2 3 years. They haven't done anything bad, you haven't done anything bad to them, and it's just maybe we grow apart or something, and then you never talk to that person again. It's so weird to me because it's like 2 3 years of being with that person every day, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, bye, moving on.
So, I have a question for you. Why do you think people do that? Why do you think it's not people don't have that conversation or decide it's better to never speak to somebody again than to try and say, "Hey, like we have a lot to offer each other, maybe in a different vessel, different format than before." Why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of people are not that deep, first of all. I'm not kidding.
I totally agree. The first time somebody taught me that lesson, I was sad for like a week. I
I
was like,
know.
"This is devastating," and she was like, "It's the truth. Sometimes it ain't that deep."
It's not, I know, but sometimes it also means something different to us than it means to them. It might, and also our sensitivity might be different than their sensitivity. And also sometimes people don't want to confront something about themselves that made the relationship not work, and they know it deep down on a subconscious level. So they'd rather bail out than confront it and deal with it. Even if you're kind to them and loving, they don't want to grow. Some people don't want to learn and don't want to grow, and that's the way it is. There's nothing we can do. And sometimes they also present themselves in a different way, and then you find out, well, they were not that deep, or they were not that kind, or they were not that loving, or they were not that committed. So a lot of times we read the signals wrong, or sometimes they give us the wrong signals.
Hmm. Why do you think people don't want to live or don't want to learn and grow? What's blocking them from that, do you think?
Well, there's pain involved
Mm,
in growing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain involved in that, but it's worth it. No pain, no gain. No pain, no growth, right? So some of us love to grow and love to know the whys, and a lot of people don't care about the whys. I remember growing up, I would ask my mom, why this, why that? So whenever I would say why, she would be like, oh God,
Mm,
because she had to have an answer for me. But I was always like that. And I'm sure you were the same.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as artists, we kind of want to find answers and we want to express ourselves. So some people are just not that way. They're not wired that way. So I think we have to understand that, we're wired differently than other people, and people are not going to respond to certain situations the same way we do. And once we understand that, it's still painful, but it's easier to digest, I think.
Yeah, when you said that, I thought of this quote from Peter and the Starcatcher, which is a musical, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically the idea is you've learned something, but for a
Mhm.
while it's going to feel like you've lost something.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of grief. And my project, this Ice King project, is very much about grief, because
Yes.
a lot of change is grief, because you are losing something. And
Yeah.
it can be very difficult to see what you're gaining. Especially a lot of my female friends who are love at first X, right? After they get out of their first long-term serious relationship, they mourn what was and have a really hard time balancing themselves, grounding themselves enough to find out what can be and who they are without that other person and that form of intimacy around them all the time. It's really complex stuff, and everybody's got a different version of it, but there are some similarities among us all as well,
Absolutely. It's the human experience.
Yeah.
And we all share the same basic traits, right? We just express them differently. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
We're different expressions of all that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's this, we're one, but we're different expressions. That's what I believe.
Mm.
So, so let's talk about a little bit about platonic intimacy, because this is something that's not talked about enough, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, what is platonic intimacy to you, and how does it differ from romantic intimacy?
What a great question. So there are two really unique elements to romantic intimacy to me. One of them is sex, right? Some sort of
Yeah.
physical, when you are romantic with someone, and this is not true of everyone, right? All relationships are different. There are all kinds of romantic relationships. So let's not say this is everybody, but very frequently there is a sexual aspect to a romantic relationship. And in our culture, there is also a lot of monogamy, right? So it's this idea that you are with one person and a lot of times you live together with that person. I'm thinking mostly of like marriage in the Western sense, right?
Yes.
Which as we know is a construct, right? That's invented. And marriage is a social
Totally.
construct. And it can be useful or not useful depending on the situation. But it's very unlikely that someone in a platonic relationship would marry their platonic relationship partner. It does
Yeah.
happen. There are lots of reasons for that, So again,
Yes.
lots of variety here, but there's usually a more physical aspect to romantic relationships, and that, of course, is its own form of expression. Right. Sexual relationships are their own form of expression, and people express themselves through that physicality in a specific way. So that dimension of intimacy is usually missing from a platonic
Absolutely.
relationships. However, they have much more in common than they do difference. So
Really?
that trust, all relationships have to be built on a foundation of trust, right? So you have to trust. Let's use a really easy example. Let's just talk about somebody you consider a best friend, right? That's
Okay.
the easiest example of a platonic relationship. So each of you trust the other person that, this is very Brene Brown, right? You will keep each other's secrets. You're not going to go blabbing secrets all over the internet or to people you shouldn't be. You're going to, be willing to do things for that person, maybe sacrifice some of what, you might rather be laying on the couch watching TV, but they really want you to go do something with them. And you're like, yes, like I will do that. I will make a small sacrifice in order to do something for this person. And also it's the same. When I was at Yale, I took a class on, it was basically a psychology class, and there was one important week on romantic relationships, and one of the key ingredients is proximity. And in the age of the internet, it's really easy to have a lot of friendships over the internet. Parasocial
Yeah.
relationships, being friends with someone you've never met on the internet before. But with romantic relationships, the psychologists have studied that you need to be physically present with them, or it can lead to some trouble. Of course, you can manage, but that's an important ingredient. is physical
Yes.
proximity. So you can
Agree.
actually maintain platonic relationships and never meet that person in person. You can totally have friendship and trust and, great conversations with people you've never met in person. So there's a whole bunch of different, little shades there, but I do believe that they have more in common than they have differences.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the same. And that's why a lot of times you become friends first and then it goes into a romantic relationship because they have the same exact base, right? And it's about the connection, really. It's all about the connection, how we connect to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like we were saying, there's different types of relationships, and that's different types of connections. Even though sometimes you can be in business with someone, you'll be like, would it be fun to be in a romantic relationship with that? Have you ever had that happen?
Oh well, one of my episodes in The Ice King is about it.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, there was a woman that I was dance partners with for many years, and dance is intimate. I also do circus.
Yeah.
Circus is intimate. Any type of physical activity where you are trusting each other. Again, lots of really strong trust. I won't drop this person. I won't let them fall to their death. Literally, so much trust. And we had a wonderful relationship, and I thought, maybe we could try and maybe there's a romantic spark here, because I certainly felt it. And then she moved away and got a boyfriend and moved away, and I never heard from her again.
Ouch.
So, yeah.
I know it's so weird to me when you have interest in the person but they don't, or vice versa. It's just so weird. That's why I feel like romantic relationships can be fickle sometimes, and that we have to kind of um, drive the car before we, you know what I mean? Not sexually, but I'm saying like as a friend. I think that it's better, sometimes people jump into the sexual part of it really quickly. I'm guilty, everybody's guilty of that, and don't allow to get to know that person. It's just the chemistry. And that's another type of relationship. It's just the sexual chemistry. And there's probably nothing else, which is crazy to me.
It happens a lot. It happens a
Yeah.
lot. I will say that particular type of relationship is extremely common among gay men.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But here's the thing. The expectation is set that that's all it is.
Yes,
And
I love
so
that.
while it is still and can be quite dehumanizing,
It is. I know.
the thing is that it's consenting adults who have
Yeah,
matching expectations about what's going to happen,
absolutely.
and so if it's consenting adults and the expectations match, like, what exactly is wrong with it? Well, maybe the hollow feeling you have inside you after 5 years of doing it, but like, as far as breaking the rules of society or polite, interaction,
Mm-mm. Unless some people do like narcissist, like narcissistic abuse. That's what they do. They'll love bomb you, so they can get you. But it's also that's another type of relationship. It's very unhealthy, but that's another type of relationship. And a lot of people have come out with that. I do a lot of narcissistic abuse on
Really?
my relationship coaching live.
Mm.
That is a very unhealthy. There's also unhealthy connections that lead to unhealthy relationships. And a lot of people stay in them because that's familiar and they don't know how to get out.
Yeah. Can I ask how you define unhealthy? Because I think that's really amazing and important, and I'm curious.
Yes. Well, let's define healthy. That's going to be easier. So healthy is when there's connection, both partners expect the same from that relationship. They're transparent, they're honest, there's no hidden agenda, there is no manipulation, it's just very clear. That would be the super healthy one. And the unhealthy one is completely the opposite. Like one of them has an agenda and manipulates the other person into believing that they have a future together, that they love them way too early, and they both don't have the same agenda, even if they're looking to stay together. One of them, their agenda is to dominate the other one because the other person, the narcissist, when I say narcissist, I'm not talking about the selfie narcissist. I'm talking about narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
So the narcissist feeds off of the negative emotions of their supply. And so that's their agenda. disguised as I love you and we have a future together. And the victim of narcissistic abuse doesn't know any better, falls for it. And then there's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome that happens after a while, unless you have somebody opening your eyes and getting you out, helping you to get out, or at least just letting you know, hey, you're in an abusive relationship, blah, blah, blah. It's very easy for people to stay. Very, very easy, unfortunately. And even though you're miserable, not that I've gone through that before, as you can tell by my eloquence.
It's like, that sounds like that's so well articulated. I hear some personal experience lurking behind these words.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Do you think people who identify as men and people who identify as women are equally capable of that?
Of
Or
being narcissistic? Oh, yeah. It's just a different MO. It's just the way they are is different.
Yeah. So my question for you, because oh my God, this is so fun. We just get to talk. We're going back and forth. So since we're talking about platonic relationships, what do you think that looks like in a platonic relationship sense?
Interesting.
Rather than a romantic one.
Well, in LA, we see that a lot. It's
oh my God. Oh, if you live in LA, you know how true what she just said is.
What can you do for me? Some people are very honest about it, but some people, the narcissistic abusers, will be a little bit more subtle, and they will have you in a little bit of a roller coaster, and they enjoy it. They love it. But yeah, I think, that's what it is. And also we were saying that romantic relationships is what people think intimacy is about. What do you think? Why do you think platonic intimacy is often overlooked?
I think because people fear or believe that when you start to feel a certain type of intimacy, it is the first flagstone on the path of romance. And that does not have to be true. Here's a great example.
Yes.
I have a wonderful friend who's a professor who lives in Connecticut. He's a professor at a college there. And he has a wonderful wife who I also love. And he and I, the first time we met, we were doing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof together at Yale. And because I was playing Brick, he was playing Big Daddy. And because there are a lot of fight scenes, there's a lot of tension in that play. And we were both big scholars. And we were like, oh, so excited to do this amazing Tennessee Williams play together. We really had a meeting of the minds and have a lot of intellectual intimacy. I run almost all of my creative ideas by him, which is here we are again. This is a type of trust that I do not extend to many of my friends at all. And maybe even, I would ask my current romantic partner about this stuff, but I can have conversations with that platonic friend that I probably would choose not to have with my romantic partner, not because I don't think they have anything to add or contribute, because everybody has something to add or contribute, but because I value this person's input in a different way. And one of the ways I'm so surprised, I got so surprised by this just a couple days ago. I was having dinner with a friend that I met in college, and we were in a singing group together. We toured the world together. We got very close. We had a momentary romantic entanglement that ended very swiftly. And he said something to me about something I had done 10 years ago. And I was so surprised at how seen I felt and the intimacy I felt as a friend with him in that moment, because he was paying attention, because something I had done was important to his life, and he remembered that. And there was sort of, it wasn't necessarily love, although I suppose that could be the flavor of it. But I felt very seen and very honored, and very, very warm feeling toward him when he brought up some memory from 10 years ago. And that's another type of intimacy that you have. Well, you could also have that with your worst enemies, right? You can share.
Isn't that crazy?
You can share intimacy with your worst enemies because you have shared experiences with them, right? And so I think that it's important to point all these things out, because it's easy to hate your enemies. It's easy to say, I never want anything to do with that person. But believe it or not, there actually is more of a relationship there than with a stranger you see at the grocery store,
I totally agree. I have somebody who's a comedian, and she said something inappropriate to my partner at the time, and I kind of, distanced myself, obviously, because it was very disrespectful. And, we always saw each other like, hi, whatever. And not long ago, she went up on the stage and talked about her abusive father. And I was like, oh, like all of a sudden I felt connected to her in the sense that now I understand why you did what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, my quote unquote enemy was not my enemy anymore. It was just me as a human understanding where her as a human was suffering. And that's why she acted out, or one of the reasons she acted out. And so that just helped me so much. But you're right. It's like the connection when you feel like you have shared experiences, which I was a victim of narcissistic abuse, which is the same thing that she's still going through. And we connected. I connected on that. I'm sure she didn't connect. She probably doesn't want to talk to me, which is fine. I don't care. But I connected with her, and that kind of relieved me of the, I have to see her. It kind of just gave me a whole different perspective. And it taught me that why we should love our enemies, not like our enemies, but love our enemies, because there is something in them something that happened to them, or something they're born with, maybe the personality disorder they're born with. And how can you control that? Imagine if you're born with a personality disorder and there's not much you can do about it. It's like being born without a leg, right? What are you going to do? You put a fake one, right? But you put a fake personality pretending to be normal, right? But you're a-hole, right?
Yeah.
And so, but having empathy for our enemies, I think, is something like so important. And I had that lesson. I learned that with a relative we're not going to talk about this person, but just extremely wow. But when I had empathy on this person, it's when I actually stopped fearing this person, and I understood it, and I was not angry at them anymore when I thought about them. And so this is the message, I think, a very important message for today: to love your enemies, not like send them flowers and bonbons, but like just understand that something happened to them, or they were born this way. And if we have compassion for that, then we're not going to be angry, because anger only hurts us.
Indeed. I have been to a lot of therapy and
Yes.
heard a lot and done a lot of like, I don't want to say like anger work. I just think anger is a fascinating emotion because there's, in my experience, almost always something underneath it. And for me, I have this
harm. Yes.
A lot of times people call it hurt. For me, when I'm angry, it's because of perceived injustice.
Yes, me too. I'm the same way. Injustice drives me nuts.
Yeah. So when I'm very passionate about this, but when I feel angry, it's because I think something is not fair, or I feel I have been treated unfairly, or that something unfair is happening.
Totally. The anger, that's called righteous anger. I call it's an alarm system. And fear is an alarm system too, But if we stay in that anger and that fear and the low vibrational emotions, remember, emotion is energy in motion. So we need to rise above it, kind of find a way to rise above it. So like you said, we have anger. Okay. I always ask myself, is it because the other person did something that's unfair to me? Or is it because it's triggering something from my childhood, from other experiences that I need to work on? So that's how we take, right? The anger or the fear or the shame or the guilt. I personally use it for my own benefit, to grow and learn, and as an alarm system. But I think it's always an alarm system. Even when you think somebody is doing something unfair to you, that's an alarm system about the other person. You know what I mean? When it triggers something inside you, it's an alarm system in your body and soul. So yeah, totally agree with that.
Right. Well, and for me, the anger in platonic relationships is really interesting also because for me, it
Yes.
comes down to two different things. One of them is sometimes my perceived injustice is because I feel that someone is acting against one of my values, right? So
Yes.
if I value respect and I feel that someone is being disrespectful, I might get angry because I feel like they are being rude, right?
Totally.
Or I usually frustrated. Frustrated is like low grade anger.
Yeah,
Anger is
yeah,
feel like a little bit bigger.
yeah.
But the other thing that I've realized about myself is that sometimes my anger, perceived injustice, is because I feel like someone is not meeting my expectation, right?
Good
And
one.
then I have to ask myself very bluntly, did I actually communicate that expectation that they didn't meet to them? Or
Yes.
am I magically thinking that the whole world is mind readers who should cater to my every whim without any effort from me? And this has been
Yes.
extremely useful for me in my both platonic and romantic relationships because I can say, okay, all right, I did not set that expectation. That's on
Mhm.
me. The anger cools off. And I'm like, when we are feeling in a grounded, whole place, I'm going to say, hey, I actually wanted to tell you about a way that I think you could really show some care for me if you wanted to,
Mhm.
or something that I would love. And it's if you don't, I don't know, leave your hoodie on the chair. I don't know, something
Totally.
like that, where it's very much instead of like, you didn't meet my expectation, it's could you do this to make
Yes.
me feel great? And never once has the answer to that been no, unless there's a really good reason, unless it's like, that's my chair, like, or
Yes.
whatever. But so anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a silly example, but I think everybody will understand the point, which is that if you're angry about something that somebody did, in a friend, especially with friendships, is that because they are violating some sort of expectation you have? And be really careful because there are a lot of unstated social expectations that we hold people to. For example, not
Yes.
being late, right, is a really good one. In
Yes.
Los Angeles,
Yeah.
if you are up to 20 minutes late, you can probably blame it on traffic. In
Yes.
New York, if you're up to 10 or 15 minutes late, you can probably blame it on the train. And if you say, I'm so sorry I was late, it was the subway, people are going to be like, that's fine. But if you start going past that, people might start getting angry because they're like, no, like that's a lie, or no, like you're not valuing my time. And then you get into trouble. So you have to be careful with certain like social expectations of what is
Yes.
deemed largely appropriate and what's not. And that can be hard because they're not written down anywhere. But
Absolutely. Agreed. And I'm a big believer in communication. So if something bothers me with my friends or anybody I have a relationship with, even business, I will express it in a kind way and try to work things out, not to fulfill my expectations, but to kind of like compromise and meet in the middle somewhere with the other person. By the way, I'm going to take a break because this is really nice. You look great. Thank you, Kelly. I had to do it, Nathaniel.
oh no, thanks, Kelly. Kelly's on it.
He's on it. So yeah, and how do you think that platonic intimacy impacts our emotional well-being compared to romantic relationships?
Okay. This is super great because to me, platonic intimacy is very connected to the idea of community, right? I think that a lot of adults I know really struggle with feeling like they belong or finding a community. And my observation has been once they do, some examples, Dungeons and Dragons like meetups, like Comic-Cons, circus class, dance class, a lot of physical communities, like physical activities bring people together. Mental activities, faith brings people together, right? That's why, church communities are really powerful because that's a place of shared platonic intimacy
Yes.
because everybody is building, again, a shared experience, right? So even if you don't like somebody in your congregation, in your class, in your group, like you're still doing things together. And
Yes.
you kind of have to decide, like, is that, do I need to leave this group because I don't like this person? Do I need to suck it up? Do I really just need to complain about it? That's a whole thing. But I think that platonic intimacy is, and the difference between a romantic partner is somebody who you go to bed, you like go to sleep with at night, right? Like
Yes.
you're sleeping in the same bed. Not necessarily. Obviously, we know there are lots of different forms of that, obviously, but
Yes.
that's a very standard idea of it. Whereas with platonic relationships, it's much more about, yes, you have one-on-one relationships with those people, but more than likely you're also part of a larger community with that person in some way.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah, you do. Or you meet them as part. Yeah. Sometimes maybe you don't participate in that community anymore. You meet there but you connect with that person. But you're right. I never thought about that, but that is
So
true.
and work is another place, right? Of course, the office
Yes.
or workplace, because like for everybody's got coworkers that you are perfectly friendly with. You can totally have lunch with at work, and not in a million years would you go out with them after work. Not in a million years. There are so many other things you'd rather do than like hang out with that person outside of that context. That's totally fine. It's just that is a platonic friendship within a platonic like community, and you have a shared goal in that community. You have a shared value, which is working for this company or whatever. And so that's another reason why like workplace into like romantic intimacy can lead to trouble, because that's a platonic community, and a relationship adds another aspect of that. And there's a lot of craziness that can ensue there. So.
Absolutely. Don't eat where you poop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or don't poop where you eat.
Exactly.
Either way it works.
So my big recommendation to anybody listening is to start with like your top 5 people, and then expand from there. But think about what type of trust, what type of intimacy, and what type of boundaries you have with the various people in your life, because you can have boundaries with your romantic partner that you don't have with your friends, and you can have boundaries with your friends that you don't have with your romantic partner, and that's fine. It just depends on the individual relationship, and looking at those pieces, I think, can really help people discover like, oh, you know what? I'm actually not as close to this person as I thought I was. And why did I think that? Or, wow, I didn't realize that like this person I thought I didn't have much of a friendship with is actually like, we're actually pretty close, huh? And I think that identifying that can be really helpful, because then you just sort of know where you're at. And then it's harder to make mistakes or say the wrong thing, or, be like, misjudge situations when you're very clear about how, and remember you can only know what you feel, right? So you can't know how other people feel about you, but you can know how you feel about other people. And I think that can be really valuable. And to really go person by person and be like, wow, like, yes, I really feel intimate with this person around this, this, and this, but I would never talk to them about this.
Yeah, that's so true. Yes. It's every friendship. It's almost like we connect from a different part of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of it. That's why I like to have a portfolio of relationships,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like a balance of everything. I feel like sometimes, people hang out with and I've done it, your romantic partner, or they want to hang out with you all the time. And I feel that takes away from my other relationships that I want to cultivate. So that's been an issue for me. Has that been an issue for you in your romantic life?
Yes. I mean, there are certainly times where I would like for the two to become one, shall we say? And I want to be very, very intimate and around a person all the time. I have also found that being apart from my current romantic partner makes me really excited for the times we are together.
Yes.
And it makes those really explosive and fun, and like just a really great time for everybody. Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. The wonderful woman who wrote Mating in Captivity. She's a really prominent relationship scientist. She and Brene Brown have talked. Oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. She talks about that.
I'll Google it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
She talks about that, in that separateness can be alluring and exciting and erotic, even, because you want to merge with that person and like be intimate in that way with them. And that can bring a lot of spice into romantic relationships.
Yeah, I agree.
Esther, what is her last name?
Esther Perel.
Perel, that's right. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, she's got a great couple of interviews with Brene Brown. If anybody ever wants to head over there, but she's so brilliant about the way that because she's a marriage coach, relationship coach.
Yes,
and talks about that sort of like the way that people can feel like, well, I live with this person. Like, what's exciting about this? Because difference is exciting, because if you have, this is why we're friends with so many, like you just said, different aspects of yourself come out in different types of platonic relationships, because you share things with certain people that you don't share with other people. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be all things to all people.
Absolutely. And a lot of people have the expectation that your romantic partner has to fulfill all your needs and like just cater to all the parts, the nuances of your personality. And that's not true. That's actually setting yourself up for failure, I think.
I completely agree with that. And I have actually had explicit conversations with my boyfriend about what do you definitely want to do alone?
That's great.
and things like, so for example, he has so many friends. My boyfriend has just more friends than I've ever seen one person have.
Oh, wow.
And he wants to maintain all of those friendships. And we struggled a little bit kind of figuring out that balance, because, we both want to be numero uno in each other's lives. But at the same time, like, I don't want him to sacrifice those friendships, because he is going to be able to express a unique part of himself with them that I simply cannot give him, because I'm not a group of 5 girls. So there are certain things I can give them that they can't.
Yeah.
But I really think that's important, and not only honoring it, but finding a way to make that exciting and everybody who is involved understands that that is a good, constructive thing and something to be celebrated. Like, I've never understood, when people are like, well, I don't want you to go out. Like, you have to be home with me. That sounds suffocating.
It's too much. I had a boyfriend who was the narcissistic abuser, who was like, I used to do way more stand-up than now. I used to go out a lot at night. And so he would be like, oh, for your safety, I want to go with you. I would be like, no, I did this before I met you. Why do you want to come to every show? And the dynamics with my comic friends would be different when he was there. And I couldn't be myself, really, because he was there. And so, yeah, it doesn't work when they want to be in everything that you do. They want to be, part of everything that you are. It's too much.
Yes. Well, and every couple or parent, however many people are involved, are going to have their own thing that works for them. And that's great. It's just everybody has to be on the same page about, like, hey,
yes,
we're going to be kind, we're going to be grounded, we're going to be empathetic, we're going to figure this out. And if problems arise, we're going to use really great language and say, when this happens, I feel this way. And I am also, okay, this is my big thing. And I condition everyone in my life to be this way around me because I need it, which is, I do not like it when people complain without offering solutions. So if somebody's going to complain to me and they're like, I just need to whine, I'm like, please, let's do it. But then, right, the expectation is set. Right. Yeah. This person just needs to vent. Okay, great. Sometimes I ask, like, do you want me to agree or do you want me to ask questions?
Like, I love that. You're so clear. I love that.
Exactly. But I feel angry when people give me problems with no solutions. Yeah. Because I'm like, what is your expectation here? You want me to solve this for you? Like, no, you don't pay me enough. So, and I think that's a really important thing that for me to know about 100. Myself.
100.
And so, and in the same way, that's one of my relationship tools, right? If I say, like, hey, like, this is an issue for me, I don't want to bring that up unless I have done good work on offering solutions that could actually work. Not like, you stay home with me forever. That's not a solution. That's crazy. Like, yeah. I actually feel the same way about my platonic relationships. Although I will say, I think those are a little bit easier to manage because friends whine more. You just complain more. Yes. That's fine. But if somebody is giving me feedback on my work, I need my creative work, my, my tutoring work, my business, even
Yes.
just, think the way I keep my house. I don't know. It's going to be like, if you're going to complain and not offer a solution, then you can come over on Thursday at 4:00 and vacuum. Like, you solve it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all of that is to say that these expectations are really important. And
Yes.
I think a lot of people figure it out without needing to talk about it explicitly, but sometimes it can be helpful because you might not know that something that you are saying to your romantic partner or your friend is like secretly really upsetting them, right?
100%. I always tell my friends or anybody I deal with, if there's something that I do or say that it upsets you, please let me know in a kind way. Don't yell at me because I don't respond very well to yelling.
Yeah.
It's too much. But just tell me nicely and I'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that was causing you to be upset. And I will definitely change the way I say it or the way I do that or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy when you communicate in a kind, loving way. I think that's key.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another example of this, which is I have always been Nathaniel. I've never been Nathan. I've
Yeah.
never been Nate, except when I'm at restaurants and need to give a quick name. I feel like it's my superhero alias that I go by Nate at Starbucks. But I have this, basically, if somebody calls me Nathan or Nate, my first thought is, oh, well, they don't know me very well, do they? Because if
Ah,
they did, they would know that I always go by Nathaniel. And if I want to have a longer term relationship with someone who is not using the right name for me, I correct them after 2 times.
and that's it.
And I say, well, yeah, kindly. But I'm like,
Yeah.
if I want, it's my job. They're just doing it because they think it's easier and they're used to being able to shorten anybody's name. It's not
Absolutely.
malicious. I'm just like,
No.
hey, I would actually really love it if you called me Nathaniel. That's what all my friends call me.
Yeah,
Right.
that's perfect. It's
Yeah.
not,
So
it's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know,
exactly. So that's my example of like, sometimes you can be doing things that you don't know that
Yes.
is like offending other people. And the person who is kind of like, that's not quite the way I wish this were going, can also take the lead on being like, hey, it would make me feel great if you did this.
Yes, that's true. I
So
like that.
who's going to insist on calling me Nathan, which is weird to me. It just sounds weird. It's not my name. Who's going to insist on doing that if I say it would make me feel great if you were to do this? Actually, some people do. And then I have
Yeah.
a little bit of like a moment with them where I'm like, okay, like you don't get to just call me whatever you want. Like,
Yeah,
like don't be
absolutely.
disrespectful. So anyway,
Well,
so there's that.
you're talking to an Argentinian who, when I first came here, my name is Graciela, right? And I went to the South and they were like, oh, Gracia Frella, what a pretty name. And I would be like, you make me sound like an STD. Gracia Frella? What the hell? I know they would kill my name. So I was like, okay, I'm going to change it to Grace so they get it, but my real name is Graciela. So I totally get it.
Yeah. I had a friend who was Raquel. And when people called her Rachel, she was like, that's not my name. My name is
It's
Raquel.
Raquel. Yeah.
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 And like, call people what they want to be called. It's very easy.
Yeah. Well, in Argentina, they called me Gracie or Grachu. Instead of Graciela, Grachu. That was like I don't know why they made up that name. It's like totally made up. But yeah, I respond to whatever at this point. But no, I totally get it. In the beginning, when I first came to the US in New Orleans, I was like, wow. I was just baffled. Graciola, Gracia Frala, Gracia. Oh my God. Okay. But it was interesting. I learned I have it on my one woman show about the different names they gave me. So
Nice.
everything is comedy material for me. So it's all good.
Ah.
I turn everything into stand-up. So can platonic intimacy exist between all genders without romantic tension, right? Or do you think society makes it a little difficult?
Oh, of course it can. Gender has nothing to do with it. Platonic intimacy has no gender, of course, obviously. Like it just that feels super easy. Like, and where problems arise is in different social structures, right? So for example, the United States has a different social structure than, Europe or the Middle East or China or anywhere in East Asia. Those social structures are all different. And so there are certainly different, so societal expectations, mores, whatever you want to call them, very much affect that. But like platonic intimacy has no gender. It doesn't matter. It's just
Totally.
that trust.
Agreed.
And if you were all stranded on a desert island, you'd evolve platonic intimacy real fast. It doesn't matter where you're from. So
Well, gender, is basically masculine and feminine energy, and everybody has masculine and feminine energy. And, like I consider myself to have like half and half. Some women have more feminine energy than I do. Some women have more masculine energy, and some men, it doesn't really matter. I think it's all about energy. I think that gender is kind of like a social construct to me. So we're all humans having a human experience. So yeah, gender absolutely doesn't matter. But I think society, like you said, it kind of makes it just different.
right.
I
Totally.
always like to go to like the core of humanity, and that to me explains a lot and rids me of all the programming that I've been, I was under as a child and in society. So if we all look at the human experience, yeah, platonic love can be anything. We can love, platonic love with your dog. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
people love their dogs so much.
And the English language is extremely limited in the way that we describe love,
Yeah.
right? So it needs a qualifier in like, platonic love, romantic love. Those are adjectives describing the type of love. Other languages have different words for those feelings.
It's true.
They have
Yes.
different words for that. And so I believe that English is actually quite limited in that particular way, which is a shame. We have a lot of words for making money.
Yeah.
But that shows, what type of culture English evolved in, right?
Absolutely.
So, and it's also like how native populations up north have many different words for snow, different types of snow, because that's life or death information, right? Like if the ice is frozen solid versus ice that's thawed, that's life or death. That's a life or death difference.
I can imagine. Yes.
Languages evolve to, describe the things that are important in that culture. And I forget which language it is that has a specific type of word for the love you feel for your camel. So,
that is so cool.
If you think about like love and intimacy are not the same thing, right? Love is a very, very broad term. I love my dog. I also love my favorite shirt. Those are totally different flavors of, one of them is not animate and my dog is animate and my shirt is not, right? Like those are different things versus the love I feel for my mother versus the love I feel for my brothers. They're all different types of things. Whereas intimacy is that trust and closeness, I think. So I can also love someone without being intimate with them.
Absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
And I can also be intimate with someone without loving them.
Yeah, like people love celebrities, for example. They're not intimate with them, but they feel close to them, or they love them, they admire them.
That's right.
So yeah.
And what's fun about this too is I love anytime I come on podcasts or do like talks like this, I really like to give the audience like things to think about or like homework to do. Yes. And I would really encourage anybody watching or listening this to think about like, what is the difference between love and intimacy for you? I can't tell you what that is. You have to figure that out for yourself. You have to decide what those differences are. And I think that naming the emotions, naming the things around intimacy versus love can be really helpful in not that you have to define relationships, but in giving you a clearer perspective on like what you're doing and with whom.
Absolutely. So I always like to, like you said, you like to give the audience a homework. I like to give practical tips and everything. When I do it by myself, when I do this podcast by myself, I always, every point I make, I give them practical tips, right? And so what are some practical ways we can strengthen intimacy in our friendship?
Ooh, practical ways to strengthen intimacy in friendships. My big one for that is to think about maybe saying things that you've been keeping secret. Like if somebody is doing something habitually that makes you uncomfortable, if somebody is doing something that you find frustrating, and that does not mean you have to act on that necessarily. I just find that my relationships got a lot stronger. So I can't do that. I don't do this in every friendship. I don't. But the ones that are important to me, I do, where I really examine like, this really bothers me. And if I could address this with this person and it went well, we would be even stronger as friends. And most of the time I've done that, it has worked out really well. And part of that is because this is like kind of thing number 2, which is using I language to talk about things that are frustrating and not saying, when you do this, it makes me do this. That's like therapy 101, right? That's like
totally 100%. Yes.
Very basic therapy training, but basically saying like, and you don't even have to depersonalize it. You don't have to say like, when this happens, I feel this way. You can say like, when you walk in the house with muddy shoes, it makes me feel frustrated because I know I'm going to clean it up afterward. And it would really be helpful for me if you could either, here are my solutions, right? It would be really helpful for me if you could either take your shoes off before you come in the house or always clean up the mud that you bring in, right? So not saying this is your fault, you fix it, but being like, this is a thing that's been tough for me. Here's some solutions. Sometimes you can help with the solution. Sometimes it's like, my solution is that you need to empty the dishwasher more often. But you know, is that an expectation you set or not? So those are a couple of things. I would also, nothing builds intimacy, in my view, faster or better than shared activities.
Yes.
So going to do things together in person is a way to build intimacy and stronger friendships. A friend of mine said something to me once I'll never forget, which he said, if you want to remember your vacation, do a lot of stuff. Because if you just lay on the beach all day, that's not necessarily memorable. It's probably relaxing and great, and we all need that sometimes. But if you want to like build a memory with somebody, do a lot of things. You don't have to get into trouble. You don't have to go to a dangerous part of town, but doing things is exciting and will give you, like, you do that enough over time and you've got a lifelong friend, you know?
Absolutely. Well, we've been going for like an hour, which it felt like 10 minutes because you and I can we can just talk. I'm telling you, I love talking to you. You're amazing. You're so talented and you have such a beautiful soul. And I really appreciate you being here on Relationship Coaching Live, enlightening myself and enlightening the audience. I really appreciate you. You're keep shining your light because you have a very bright light.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's so nice to talk to you. And I really want to say thank you to your audience too for tuning in and listening to this. The Ice King's Heart will come out in just 2 weeks. And it's several episodes are to come out every week. So probably be like 2 months of releasing. And what would be so meaningful for me, because I just did this in the dark and put it out there, is if people would let me know if the types of things I'm describing ring any bells for them. If they can see their personal experience in the real world reflected in this sort of mythologized, slightly larger than life, but not that much larger than life version of what relationships can look like. Because I'm really curious if other people have had the same experiences that I've had.
Absolutely. So guys, make sure you subscribe to Nathaniel's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@Nathaniel
Dolquist. Yep. I'm Nathaniel Dolquist on all platforms. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, that's so easy. I wish, I started way back and I just didn't do that. And now some of them is the State of Grace Fraga. Some of them is Grace Fraga. Okay. Smart. So guys, subscribe to him, follow him on Instagram, friend him on Facebook. He's amazing. And you will love the Ice King. And I can't wait to go to the premiere.
Yes, I'm so excited. I got to send her the invite just a couple days ago because we just confirmed the venue. And I was like, here you go, Grace. See you there. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you for the invite. I work until 7:30, but I'll be there at 8. Great. And perfect timing. So it's going to be, that's when you guys are going to show it like different episodes back to back or something while people are watching or like chatting, because it sounded like it was like while people are like socializing?
Well, one of the reasons we chose the venue we chose is
Yes.
because there are separate rooms. So we have little sound bubbles, and I'm going to play a couple of different episodes on loop in each room. So people can go in and see them, and then go to the next room, and then go get a drink, and then go to a different room. I just think it's going to be so fun. The point is that people
Love.
enjoy it. And like most people probably won't watch the entire thing. Like while they're there, that's fine. It's going to release over time, but these are little, it's in vignette form so that it's easily digestible. I think the longest episode is like 10 minutes. And
Okay, that's not bad.
it's because I was betrayed twice. So
Oh
you gotta-
no, that once would have been 5 minutes. Okay.
That's right.
But see, now they gave you 5 more minutes of material. See how great sometimes all these betrayals and these narcissistic abusers and these a-holes, they're great. They give us material. We would not be able to be functional artists without them.
That's right. I have a strong belief. I tell my students this too. I don't make art about anything that I don't feel like I can really like handle it. Like if it's too raw, if it's a like an open wire, or a what's the word I'm looking for? A wire that, you know, doesn't have any protection on it. I avoid it until it's settled a little bit. A live wire, that's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, so anyway, it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for people to watch it. I think it's going to be really great. I'm going to just splatter it all over the internet. And I made it so that people might see a reflection of themselves. I don't really make any money off of it. This is I would have made this in a closet alone anyway. So
Yes,
it's just extra bonus to get to share it with so many people, and hopefully it will resonate with folks. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nathaniel. And I can't wait for the premiere.
thanks, Grace. We'll see you there.
Definitely. Bye.
Bye. See ya.
See ya. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as we can tell, platonic intimacy is one of the most powerful forms of connection we can experience. It nurtures us, strengthens our emotional resilience, and reminds us that intimacy isn't just about romance. It's about showing up, being present, and fostering trust in the relationships that shape our lives. Thank you so much, Nathaniel, for sharing your wisdom. And to everyone watching, what does platonic intimacy mean to you? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this conversation insightful, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay connected, stay intentional, and embrace the power of platonic intimacy. Bye, guys.